Hello and welcome to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS. Welcome to another session of Indian Economy Essentials. And in today's session, let's try and understand why one of the airline carriers in India, that is Go First, has filed for bankruptcy. And within this particular topic, what is relevant for examination point of view. Now, let's start with certain important basics here. I'm pretty sure all of you know that there are a lot of private sector airline carriers in India. The best example for that is Indigo, Go First company, Air India now, which is owned by Tatas, etc. Now these private sector companies provide a lot of services, also generate a lot of revenues and ensure that their companies will continue to perform. But very important point to note here is one of the stumbling points or one of the very important sticking point in case of the civil aviation market in case of India in recent times has been the issue of pandemic. I'm pretty sure all of you know what has been the impact of the pandemic, especially on some of the components in the services sector. One of the biggest sectors or areas which has been affected by the pandemic has been the civil aviation market. Now, apart from this, another very important point to note regarding the civil aviation market is the import dependency. The idea of import dependency. Now, many of you will ask me, sir, how is this import dependency going to affect the civil aviation market and what is the connection to the Go First, and more importantly, what is the connection to the examinations? I'll come to that, don't worry. In case of India, we import the crude oil, which means one of the outcomes of crude oil, that is aviation turbine fuel, ATF, aviation turbine fuel. The ATF, which is the fuel for the civil aviation market, that is aeroplanes, we are importing a lot of it, and any variation in the international crude oil prices, no doubt, will have a direct impact on increased prices of ATF. That is, if the crude oil prices in the international market go up, ATF prices will go up. And if the ATF prices will go up, automatically the ticket prices in the domestic market will also go up. In fact, one of the very important components that contributes to majority of the ticket prices in India is the idea of a pricing of ATF. Now, in the recent times, not just the Go First, but all the civil aviation companies have been affected by both of these factors. That is, one, pandemic, and second one, the import dependency on the fuel. In fact, in addition to rising crude oil prices in the international market, there is one more factor that you will have to remember, that is the depreciation of domestic currency. Depreciation of Indian rupee. Now, whenever the rupee depreciates, that is the domestic currency of India depreciates, imports automatically will become costlier. Imports automatically will become costlier. And because I've already mentioned that we are heavily dependent on the fuel here, any depreciation of Indian rupee automatically will make fuel much more costlier. So there are three very important points, remember, and all these three factors have disrupted, have affected the revenues of all the civil aviation companies. And we can apply the same three factors even in the context of Go First company. That is a civil aviation carrier, a civil aviation service provider. So the Go First company first was affected by the pandemic, which affected the amount of services, or let's say the flights they used to provide. Customers were not allowed to move. Automatically, the revenue generation of the Go First company went down. Point number two, the import dependency of the fuel, rising fuel prices and the rupee depreciation also affected the revenues of the Go First company. Third very important point, in order to ensure that they will continue to perform their activities, ensure that they will have sufficient amount of money to conduct all these activities, to pay for various liabilities, etc., the Go First proposed initial public offering, IPO. But because of various issues, especially affected by the pandemic, they were not able to attract a lot of investors in the market. There was no scope for, or let's say there was no interest shown by the investors in this company. And as a result of this, the draft red herring prospectus, which had a deadline, has already lapsed. So the IPO dreams of the company were also crushed. Fourth very important point, and this is the point which has been mentioned by the company as a reason for them to approach NCLT, that is availability of performing engines. The working engines, because the airlines require engines, and the airlines, or let's say the civil aviation, or let's say the aeroplanes that were used by the company required certain engines which were supposed to be supplied by a foreign company. They have stopped, or they have basically delayed supplying, and they have said right now we'll not be able to supply the engines. Do not worry about the name of the company, not relevant for the exams. But what has happened? Because the engines are not available, more than half of the planes that were used by the Go First company have been grounded. As per the latest information given by the company, 28 aeroplanes out of 50 plus, somewhere around 57 aeroplanes, 28 out of them have been grounded. So on one side, the cost of operations they are incurring. On the other side, they are not able to provide the services to generate revenues. As a result of this, the financial position of the company became very, very weaker. And because 28 of these planes have been grounded, which were lesser previous year, but now it has increased to more than 50%. Because of this, the market share of the company, and this is the fifth point, the market share of the company has actually declined. How much? Please have a look at the graphical representation. Do not buy out the numbers, not at all relevant for the exams. In March 2019, the market share of the company was 9.9%. Let's round it off to around 10%. By March 2023, this has actually declined to 6.9%. From 10%, again I'm rounding off, from 10%, it has actually declined to around 7%. So on one side, market share has come down, which means the amount of revenues that they were able to generate has gone down. On the other side, the cost of operations have increased. They are not able to generate sufficient amount of money either through IPO or through their services, etc. All of this has actually led to huge amount of pressure on the financials of the company, which you can see in the red lines here, which is basically the profits earned by the company. In the last 3 years, that is the financial year 20, 21 and 22, the company has incurred a net loss rather than earning a net profit. Now, what has happened because of all of this? Right? All the 5 factors have come together now. What is the result? What is the outcome of all of this? The company Go First now has approached NCLT, National Company Law Tribunal, and has applied for insolvency. Simple. Has applied for insolvency. Now the NCLT in the 14 days time period either has to accept the application or has to reject the application of the company. Now here is a very important point for you. Make a note of this. In case of NCLT, that is under the Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code, either the creditor can approach the NCLT, file an application against the borrower, or the borrower can approach the NCLT, file an application for conducting insolvency resolution. In simple terms, either the creditor or the borrower, either the debtor or the creditor can approach NCLT to file an application against or for conducting an insolvency resolution. Now apart from this, just make a note of this. Indigo, the service provider, Indigo maintains, or let's say controls, majority of the market share in the domestic market. That is around 57% of the market share in the domestic passengers is held by the company Indigo itself. Now come to the most important point. First, what are the implications of this? What are the implications of this news? That is more relevant for you. And second, has Government of India done anything in order to reduce the stress or the problems in the civil aviation market? I'll start with the second point here. That's the Government of India during pandemic, that is in 2020, introduced the package by the name of Atmanirbhar Bharat. Under the Atmanirbhar Bharat, government introduced one initiative by the name of ECLGS. Emergency Credit Line Guarantee Scheme. Under the ECLGS, initially it was focused on very narrow coverage, that is MSME sector, but over a period of time, the coverage has been expanded. Now, the amount of coverage provided under the ECLGS is 5 lakh crore rupees, but the importance of this is twofold here in the context of civil aviation. First one, under the ECLGS, the civil aviation companies will be allowed to borrow up to 1,500 crore rupees, up to 1,500 crore rupees in order to address their financial issues. And second very important point is, under the ECLGS, government will provide the guarantee coverage for the loans, and because the government is providing the guarantee coverage, these loans for the civil aviation companies will be collateral free. So this is what the government of India has done in a form of a scheme in order to provide certain assistance to the civil aviation market. Come to the other side of it. What is the implication? First very important point. This is the second larger air carrier, or let's say service provider in the last 2 to 3 years, which has filed for bankruptcy. And this for Indian economy, which is especially showcasing a huge amount of potential. The government is promoting the growth in the civil aviation market. Many other private sector companies have started providing services, have expanded the services, etc. So one of the largest growing markets, civil aviation markets in the international market, this news does not assist this particular market initiatives. That is, when on one side we look at it, there's a huge potential, investment is coming, but on the other side, two big carriers, that is 2 years ago, 3 years ago, if you look at this, 2019, Jet Airways filed for bankruptcy. And in 2023, we have one more, right, a civil aviation carrier, that is Go First, which controlled around 7%. 7% is not a very small number. It is up to 1/14th of the total market share. Another company has filed for insolvency. That doesn't bode well for the Indian civil aviation market. Second very important outcome is, what about the customers? What about the customers? This is a summer season. And during this particular summer season, there is a very high demand for civil aviation market. Right? There is a huge demand, and suddenly one service provider who is to carry somewhere in the range of 25,000 to 30,000 passengers per day and had 200 flights, around 200 flights per day. If suddenly this carrier stops providing the services, demand is already very high, supply becomes lower, there is an expectation that other service providers will leverage this situation, start increasing the prices of the tickets, which is not a good news for customers such as you and me. And the third very important implication of this is, this will provide an opportunity for other service providers. There are other service providers, civil aviation market service providers, because this company, that is Go First, had a predominant position, that is basically had lot of slots in some of the regions in India, such as Delhi Port or Delhi Airport. Now, if these services, or let's say these flights will not be taken, now these slots will be available, right, for other civil aviation companies. So these are the three very important implications associated with the news that has broken out today morning, or let's say yesterday it was there in the current affairs, and today morning every newspaper has carried it. That is, Go First has applied for bankruptcy with NCLT. Now, based on this discussion, I have given an MCQ here. Consider the following statements regarding ECLGS. Was announced for the first time in recently announced budget for financial year 24. Wrong. It was part of Atmanirbhar Bharat package. Under this, the eligible beneficiaries are allowed to take collateral-free loans. Statement 2 is correct. Of course, there are conditions, there are limitations here. So first is wrong, second one is correct. Right option for the question will be option B, only 2 is correct. If you like these initiatives, hit the like button, provide your valuable comments in the section below. And if you yet to subscribe to BYJU'S Exam Prep IAS YouTube channel, kindly do it now. Thank you. Have a great day.